Science is not based on consensus. Do you agree with the consensus that climate changes seem to be dangerous? Recently, the consensus about climate change stays in the propositions of what has been happening and that the change is partly man-made. But science is not based on consensus. There was once a widespread agreement about phlogiston, a crucial part of combustion, before the discovery of oxygen. Similarly, the concepts of eugenics, the impossibility of continental drift, genes were made of protein, not DNA, stomach ulcers were caused by stress, and so forth were all eventually proven false. The famous American theoretical physicist Richard Feynman once said, "Science is the belief in the ignorance of experts." It's the data that is convincing, not the existence of a consensus. There were two pieces of data showing that climate change would likely be dangerous. The first, based on the Vostok ice core, was a graph showing the level of carbon dioxide and temperature vary in lockstep over the last 500,000 years. The second, the famous hockey stick graph, showed recent temperatures shooting up faster and higher than at any time in the past millennium. Within a few years, however, the first graph told the opposite story from what scientists had inferred. It is now clear that it's the temperature that drives changes in the level of carbon dioxide in the cores, not vice versa. As for the hockey stick graph, it was effectively critiqued by Stephen McIntyre, a Canadian businessman with a mathematical interest in climatology. He showed that the graph depended heavily on unreliable data, especially the samples of tree rings from pine trees, the growth patterns of which do not often respond to temperature at all. It also depended on a type of statistical filter that overweighted any samples showing sharp rises in temperature in the 20th century. Hockey stick graph was based on a lake sediment sample that was brought in from Finland, which had to be turned upside down to show a temperature spike in the 20th century. Furthermore, a sample of larch trees from Siberia that had grown faster in recent decades was also added. The sample can be unreliable because the fast growth can be due to the deaths of neighboring trees, not the change in temperature. Just several weeks ago, the Siberian larch data was finally corrected by the University of East Anglia after removing all signs of hockey stick upticks, quietly conceding to and attesting that Mr. McIntyre's perception was right. Therefore, it is the persuasive evidence that supports whether a theory is right or wrong. It is best to seriously consider what the consensus says.